Hi, Sandra Wilson here. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist who works with people who pull out their hair compulsively. Now, I've been asked whether or not trichotillomania can be a result of trauma in childhood. And the answer to that is yes, it can be, but I absolutely do not want anyone to think that if their child happens to have trichotillomania, then it means that somehow they have had a trauma. It's not really a established cause and effect. So if you are hair pulling, or if your child is hair pulling, there may be numerous reasons, not necessarily trauma. And also, trauma doesn't have to necessarily be huge trauma. Some children are just maybe a little more sensitive to change or adverse experiences than others. Now, it seems to be fairly well established that the hair pulling itself, the actual brain chemistry, the feeling a child would get when they discover that pulling their hair feels very soothing, is probably likely to be linked to a coping mechanism. It's a soothing behaviour and perhaps an attempt to regulate, to self-regulate. And if a child is exposed to a situation that feels beyond their control, even if it's not like a hugely traumatic event, sometimes just moving schools or parents separating can lead to a child feeling stressed and overwhelmed. This isn't meant to be a guilt trip, of course, but there could be an impact. And I think there has been a study, I forget where I read this now, it might have been TrichStop, but yeah, so early traumatic experiences can lead a child to be more predisposed to hair pulling and other forms of behaviour that can be classified as the body-focused repetitive behaviours or even self-harm. And where I'm going with this really is it's often imperative to work on the root, the underlying triggers, rather than directly focusing on the symptom itself. So I have worked to help people clear trauma, to process trauma in a very indirect, safe way. So it's not about reliving trauma. Is that sometimes if you have a traumatic experience, the brain doesn't always fully process the emotional content of that experience, and a therapy like hypnotherapy can really help that along. And in that sense, by healing the trauma from within, it can often eventually lead to symptoms becoming far less of a problem. So I hope that has made sense to you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.